Hello everyone, I'm Sean from Urban Agents, and today we are going to talk a little bit more details on the market analysis of the resale transactions happening in Singapore. Why we are choosing District 19 is not because I live here, but it's really we can see the largest recorded number of resale transactions in the private residential properties. While just zooming into Sengkang and Punggol itself, you can see that there's over 1,000 resale transactions. Well, before I go on further, we have actually compiled a very detailed market analysis report of all the transactions happening in District 19 itself. If you want to get hold of this report, please do not hesitate to call me at my mobile number. Alright, let's continue to watch this video to find out the gist of this report of all the resale transactions in District 19. Today, we are going to talk about some of the condos which is aged between 5 to 10 years old. We are not going to look into the older projects because most of the prices have already stagnated, but we are looking into those of the younger ECs as well as the private properties. Why we are actually looking into this data? Because when we know the behavior and how the market estate trend is, then you will have a better idea of where to invest, and you also have to see if there's any upside potential. While we have 13 condominiums located in these two estates, and out of them 6 are actually executive condos. Executive condos have a different price behavior because that was following under strictly the HDB policies, where the consumers, or in fact the customers and purchasers, they could not exceed the household income of more than $16,000. While it used to be $12,000 and then it was slowly revised to $14,000, and right now it's capped off at $16,000 as of today. Purchasers, they cannot sell the place until they have reached their 5-year minimum occupational period. So meaning to say they need to have a longer holding period as compared to their private properties owners. Now, as you can see from the graph, Asperina and Privé, they are actually the top 2 performing executive condos in terms of their absolute gains. Why is it so? Because first and foremost, they have one of the lower entry price as compared to the private properties. And second of all, Asperina, located next to Buangkok MRT station, and Privé, which is located within walking distance to Punggol MRT station, they are located very close to amenities. And then, of course, Privé is located quite close to Waterway Point, and that is one of the mega shopping mall in Punggol. Second runner-up place is Twin Waterfalls, located in Punggol itself. And we are going to see a lot more transactions in this year because this place has just reached its 5-year MOP period. So definitely we're going to see whether or not they are going to outperform as compared to Privé or even to Asperina Residences. The next 2 ECs, which is River Park Residences and Osville Residences, well, they are actually located further away from the MRT station. Therefore, they have a slightly lower absolute gains as compared to their counterparts. In terms of the volume, these 2 ECs has the higher volume as compared because of the lower entry price for the resale purchasers. While for the owners who have actually bought during the launch for a Treasure Trove and Park Centrals, these 2 condominiums are actually located very close to Punggol MRT station, and of course within walking distance to Waterway Point, which is a mega shopping mall. And you can see that on the average, owner who actually resell his property, absolute gain is hovering between $170 to $200 over $1,000. And that to me is quite a good gain for them to upgrade to another bigger place. Now we look at other condominiums such as the River Sales, River Isles, River Sound Residences. These are actually quite on the outskirts of the estate itself. Of course, they do enjoy their own fair share of their amenities and the convenience to the nearest LRT station, but their performance are not as good as those compared nearer to the MRT stations. While if you look into Jewel at Buangkok, which is located quite close, in fact walking distance to Buangkok MRT station, but why is it not performing as good as its own private property counterparts? There is a reason, because of the higher entry point during the launch time, and that was at the peak of our property market trend. Now we look into this graph of the number of resale transactions versus the number of units within each condo development. Guess what are the top 3 performing condos? Number 1, Osville Residences, which has 84 units sold out of 540 units. Number 2, Asperina Residences. There are 78 transacted units out of 573. Number 3 is Privé, which is coming out as 63 units out of 680 units. And in the 4th place, it is also an executive condo, which is 39 units out of 504 units. Why I would say that the top 4 are actually the ECs, because they have a lower entry price as compared to their private properties counterparts. Because at the end of the day, the consumers also need to understand that they want to also have an upside. Once they occupy a place, they also need to have an exit plan, and definitely they also want to have a capital appreciation. Why do you want to buy a higher entry price as compared to a lower entry price? Because at the end of the day, you want to defray the profits back onto your own pockets. Now, as comparing to the private residential developments such as Riversound, River Isles, a Treasure Trove, Jewel and Buangkok, Park Centrals, and Floor Residences, well, these are actually hovering between 15 to 21 units out of over about 600 units on the average. Now we can see that why are there such of a lower transactions is because there's a price entry point that people are aware of. Yes, they are located very close to MRT stations, but that doesn't really become the pull factors because at the end of the day, we Singaporeans are very price sensitive. Right, looking at this graph for the area and transactions that's happening in 2019 for smaller units. Now, how do we define the smaller units? They are actually around 400 to 900 square feet in approximate in floor area. We can see for the first graph, which is a Treasure Trove, the typical 2 bedrooms are hovering around 775 square feet and their quantum is already around $900,000. As compared to the ECs, Osville and Esperina residences, they are actually ranging from 785 square feet all the way to 828 square feet. While their quantum, you can see there's a significant difference. In Osville, it is around 740,000, whereas for Esperina residences, it's around 930,000. Well, we can see the differences is because Esperina residences is located right next to an MRT stations, and because of the latest launch, there is the Sengkang Grand Residences, which is the integrated shopping mall that is run by CapitaLand and by CDL. You can see that actually future buildings and condominiums actually help to drive the prices up around it. So therefore, it performs better than Osville Residences, which is located on the outskirts, more to the Sengkang East Avenue, where you have limited amenities. Alright, from this graph that we're going to look at is the area and transactions happening for the past 12 months in 2019 for the bigger units. How do we define these bigger units? They are actually hovering between 1,000 to about 1,400 square feet in total of the floor area. From the Treasure Trove, you can see that the average 3-bedroom size is around 1,130 square feet and their price quantum is 1.23 million. This is because they are located next to a shopping mall and an MRT station in Punggol itself. Comparing with Osville Residences and Esperina Residences to the ECs, well, the ECs have a slightly smaller square footage, which is around 1,000 to about 1,060 square feet. Price quantum is around 920k all the way to 1.17 mil. Properties that's nearer to MRT station can actually fetch a slightly higher price quantum. Whereas for Jewel at Buangkok and Park Centrals, well, both are actually located within walking distance to their respective MRT stations. Average floor area is around 1,140 to 1,150 square feet. The price quantum is very close to each other, that's hovering between 1.37 mil all the way to 1.4 million. Alright, looking at the chart analysis, you're just wondering that why many upgraders are more susceptible to buying ECs, which is our executive condos, is because of a lower price entry. And there's always an upside in terms of the capital appreciation after the minimum 5-year holding period. At the same time, you must not own any private property or any BTO, and if you have sold it, you have to have a 30 months of cooling period in order to buy an EC. Whereas for purchasers buying private residential developments, non-ECs, well, you also can enjoy an upside to it. But of course, you have to be more cautious because you must be well informed of the price entry point as well as your exit point. When exactly are you going to exit? At the 5th year mark, at the 8th year mark, or at the 10-year mark? So for us as consultants, we are also here to advise you when is a good point to exit so that you can actually capitalize on your gain and at the same time to purchase another new launch which is going to enjoy another set of upside capital appreciation. Well, before I go, I have a small treat for you. If you are keen to find out more details on our market analysis report or want to get hold of this report, please do not hesitate to call me at my mobile number. I'm Sean from Urban Agents. See you next time.